Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Rudy. I'm the senior instruction writer at Golf Digest. And as a part of my everyday work, I'm lucky to be able to spend lots of time with talented and experienced coaches. But today's a rare opportunity and one I'm excited that you're going to get a chance to participate in. Since Golf Digest began its list of America's 50 best teachers in 1999, only a small handful of coaches have been members of every one of those 12 lists that were voted on by thousands of peers nationwide. And two of those people are here right now, David Ledbetter and Dave Pelz. And they're here to discuss not only their work with multiple major championship winners and world number ones, but how they've blazed the trail for coaches and players to integrate real science and research with traditional teaching techniques to help players score better and enjoy the game more. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Dave.
Great to be with you all. Nice to see you, Dave.
And now, how does it feel being interviewed by a real magazine, Golf Digest, as opposed to what's that other one you said a little sarcasm wouldn't hurt, huh?
A little sarcasm wouldn't hurt. Yeah, it's always better to be overtaking the leader. I think I enjoy that. I like being on the team that's chasing down the leader.
There you
I'm
go.
glad I didn't even have to say that. David just did it on his own. That was good. We were just talking ahead of this here when you two first met, how you first met each other. Everybody's up for a good origin story. When did you first meet?
I was trying to recall. I don't know. I think when you get to a certain age, you forget about these things. I mean, I can't remember where I met my wife. Never mind, anything else. But I think it was at. I think it might have been at Lake Nona many years ago. When I was located there in Orlando, and I obviously I knew of Dave with all the work that he'd done, and I honestly can't pinpoint exactly where I met him, but it's we were the threesome, myself, Dave, and Jim McLean. We were sort of the first three instructors on the Golf Channel in the early days, so we did a lot of shows and together and apart, and so. I've always admired Dave. I mean, you talk about Bryson DeChambeau being the sort of mad scientist. Well, I think you got one right, right here. I mean, because I won't say he's a mad scientist. He's a scientist. He is a scientist, and so he put all that knowledge to work. And I think he's made such a contribution to the golfing world in more ways than one. And statistics, etc. We talk about statistics now, but I mean. Even probably in their very crudest form, Dave was very much involved in the early years, and really, I think, based a lot of his research on statistics, doing all this work with different players of all abilities, and so his, obviously his short game Bible was a monumental work that I think certainly many of us sort of look to, and I think is still probably. Looked at, I mean, even in the modern world. So, kudos to him. And so, apart from that, he's probably one of the most modest people I've ever met, with all of his accomplishments. So it's always been a great pleasure. We sort of live out close to each other in Colorado, and we've had mutual students and people who I've worked with, and he's coached. So we've had academies at similar locations. So it's been a fun ride. One of the real good guys in golf, that's for sure.
That's true.
Well, I sure appreciate the comments, David. It's I have known Led since sometime way long ago, and the thing I remember about meeting you is that we talked a little golf, and we talked about students, and with one of my students that I had recommended go to you for the full swing because I didn't want to get involved in the full swing. You said, "Oh, no problem. In fact, I've got a guy that has been asking about you," and we sent our mutual students to each other, and they didn't have any problems, and they didn't get screwed up. And if you take enough lessons from enough different instructors in the world, and they're different enough, you can totally lose your game and not be able to do anything. You can just be frozen. And that never has happened with any of our students, and it's been great. But I remember, I would like to point out one thing, David. You may not remember it, but at the time we met, I was really knee deep in research. I was following players. I had walked every golf course with my own feet. This was before laser rangefinders, and it was before ShotLink. We're talking a long time ago. And I was walking off their shots and measuring the golf courses with 300-yard tapes. And I was studying the game, and nobody knew Dave Pelz. I mean, there was no Dave Pelz name at all. But I talked to Led. We talked about it. We got along very, very well. And then I started learning, and he was very open with me how he had done so well. He was making money, I wasn't, and he really helped me. He said, "Look, you gotta do this, and you gotta do that, and you've got to have." From the day I met David, I have never given a free lesson since that day, because if you give things to people, they don't appreciate it. They don't think very much of it. But if you charge, there's never a tour player that's come to me that I haven't charged, and therefore I know he's going to listen, because they get most everything free. If they have to pay, then you know they want something, and they'll listen. And that's the first requirement, is somebody to listen. I mean, you can say anything you want to say. If the person's not receiving it, it does no good whatsoever. And so I have a great debt of gratitude to not only David for getting me a little more turned towards the business part of the golf instruction industry, because I'm not a money person by nature. I don't think about it. My wife runs our little company, and I don't even know how many school students we have, or if the business is going well or not. But David said, "Hey, you can't stay in this business if you go under. If you keep losing money, it's not going to last." And so I have a great debt of gratitude to David Ledbetter, and I followed him to the Golf Channel. I don't know if we were both there the opening day in '95. So I don't know if we went together, or they probably approached him first, because I think he had a much bigger name. And I've always loved David Ledbetter.
I think, David, you're muted.
Oh, wait, David, Led, you're muted.
You're muted, David.
I'm muted. There we go. I'm muted. Sorry. No, I said the check is obviously in the mail, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Well, I mean that brings up a great point about the willingness to do research, whether it's looking at raw data, looking at biomechanical research. Both of you guys have been outliers and early adopters when it comes to wanting to understand more of what goes into a golf swing. Does it feel for either one of you that the teaching business has finally started to catch up to some of the things that you had been thinking about decades ago?
Well, if I can answer, I mean, I think that, look, as a coach, to some extent, you're a bit of a visionary, and you sort of look at how things develop. I mean, I've always prided myself, not through my own research necessarily, but people coming to me and looking at different things. I mean, back in the days, I mean, there were similar things. I mean, certainly antiquated. I remember there was a guy out of California, his name was Mike McTeague, and he had this thing that you strapped on your back, and it sort of showed you the pathway and gave you parameters. It was almost like probably a modern day K-vest sort of thing, a bit more cumbersome, certainly. It was like wearing a backpack and what have you. But nevertheless, it was so, I mean, I've always enjoyed sort of look, golf it lends itself to it, doesn't it? I mean, we're always looking for the holy grail, right? I mean, where do we go? What are we looking for to sort of help people to play better? That's in essence. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're working with a tour player or you're working with a weekend player. I mean, everybody wants to play better, and golf is a game where, look, they show a little bit of improvement, and it provides this incentive to keep working at it and to buy equipment and to get more lessons and to go to golf schools and blah, blah, blah. So it becomes a way of life. And I think a lot of people that we've worked with, I'm sure a lot of people have gone to Dave's schools. I mean, these people are, they're, I wouldn't say fanatical golfers, but they're golfers that say, you know what, I'm going to put time, effort, energy, and money into the sport. I want to do it to my fullest potential. So, I mean, I enjoy working with people like that. I mean, look, it's a very different situation when you have a corporate day and it's like, okay, move that right handle more under. Okay, there you go, you got it, perfect. I mean, we know. Look, I think we're looking at players, and we look at ability levels, we look at talent levels, and certainly with today, with all the technology that we have, with launch monitors and force plates and 3D analysis. I mean, they're tools, but I still think, I'm actually quite pleased in many respects that I grew up in the old-fashioned way, where it was like my instincts were able to help me. I mean, I didn't have a camera back in the days. I remember, I was working with at one stage when I first got my first VHS camera, a big clunking thing, I had to lug that thing around at tournaments. Yeah. I probably had 15 to 18 players approach me and say, hey, listen, because I'd never seen their swings on film. This is sort of in the early 80s. And so, yeah, I mean, we've come a long, long way since then, obviously. And so I think technology has come a long way, and we sort of stepped into how should we say it? We had a little taste in the early years, but now it's grown to something that, I mean, a lot of coaches and teachers have access to, and I think it's still really important that you go through that process. I know with David, David's a scientist. Okay, he wasn't a golf instructor per se. He was a very good player. But the fact of the matter is, he learned it, and you can live. It takes a while. I mean, as I always say to my coaches, or all the coaches all over the world, you've got to start off with beginners. You can't start off just because you've got a TrackMan and go and work with a tour player, just because you're a pretty good player yourself. But so people, a lot of young coaches, in my opinion, haven't actually paid their dues, and everybody wants to coach tour players now. And you look at most of the stuff on the internet, it's all geared towards very, very good players, and so. Obviously, the magazines do a good job in trying to bring it to the masses, but still, a lot of it is geared by what the players are doing. I mean, this Bryson DeChambeau stuff now. I mean, you tell me the average golfer is going to be aware of, getting his pressure going down through his left foot and then being able to stand up on it. I mean, an 18 handicapper, if he gets out, he drives to the golf course, sort of puts his shoes on, jumps in the cart, and he's got no mobility. And he's going to be trying to swing like Bryson. Well, I mean, we have to look at it. And I think that with all the schools, I know that Dave's done and I've done, the great thing about it is that golf instruction still has to be geared to the individual, even though we try to mass produce it.
Matt, when I met David, I hadn't even specialized at the time. It wasn't until I took 40 rounds of data for 30 different players, every shot, one tee to 18 green, where they went and how accurately they hit them. When I saw that data analyzed, and it took me a year and a half to do that, there were no laser rangefinders, there were no video cameras. David's right. This is a long time ago, but I had played golf all my life trying to be a great player, and the moment I saw that data, I realized why I was never a great player and could never become a great player, because my short game was so bad compared to what I needed to be able to produce if I was going to be competitive. And at the time, there was no term short game. We started looking at the data and we said, wait a minute. That's the whole reason I separated and went a different direction than David or Jim Flick. Remember Jim Flick? I mean, God bless him, he's not with us anymore, but he told me I was absolutely crazy. What are you doing? That's not what people practice. Full swings 20 to 1. And that's true, they do. And that's why there aren't very many short game people, because there's not enough students for it. But it's been a long road. A lot of people now know about the short game and how important putting is compared to what they used to think. I mean, Ben Hogan thought putting was not a real part of the game. He thought ball striking was everything. So when I saw that it was the great ball strikers of my time, before me and my time, which is everything I looked at the data at the time, the great ball strikers were very poor short putters, and the great putters were very poor ball strikers. I mean, George Archer could putt the eyes out of it. He couldn't hit a fairway to save his life. And in Woosnam, you remember Woosie, he really hit it well, but he didn't putt very well, because at the time the PGA of America was teaching everybody one swing in golf. It's a 5-iron is a miniature drive, and a chip shot is a miniature 5-iron, and a putt is a miniature chip shot. And of course, I believe totally differently. I believe there's the full swing, the power swing, and I believe that good-looking fellow there in the black cap is the greatest teacher ever in the full swing. I think there's short game, and then I think there's putting, and putting is totally different than the power swing. And the short game is somewhere in between, because you have to sacrifice distance for accuracy, but you have to get it to the green. If you can't get a wedge airborne, it doesn't matter how hard you swing or anything else. You've got to get it airborne, and you've got to be able to stop it. So there are 3 games in golf, and I teach only 2 of them. And I have never given to this day, and won't ever give a full swing lesson. I think I'm going to leave that to the experts.
Do you think the reality of all that data and all the measurement that we can do now, and like David was just talking about, the force plates and gears, you've got TrackMan. Do you think that the data we have and the ability to measure and the fountain of information that's produced, has that made golf an easier game for the average person to learn, or a harder one to learn because it's harder to discern what applies to you and what makes sense and what you should actually do?
Oh, do you think teaching's any easier today, David, than it used to be? I mean, I don't see students glomming on to it is more how you teach in some instances than what you teach, because they don't have a clue to start with.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think of it, look, the more knowledge that a coach and teacher has, in my opinion, the easier it is to teach simply. If you complicate things, I mean, look, golf's a complicated enough sport already. The fact is that people have less time to play and to practice than they ever have in the past. Mm-hmm. So piling on, getting all this information and going onto YouTube, where there's apparently about 7 million pieces of advice, mainly on the long game. There's quite a bit on the short game and putting, but mainly on the long game. It can make it can definitely make the game more confusing. And I mean, I think people like Harvey Pinnock and Tommy Armour would be turning over in their graves if they saw how some of these players are being taught. Because to me, you've got to keep, it's the KISS theory for a lot of people. And so, I mean, the old, Ernest Jones, swing the club head, and Manuel de la Toro, his protege. I mean, these guys had unbelievably, John Jacobs, for instance, probably one of the best teachers I've ever seen. I mean, really was able to sort of get the message across pretty quickly. So I think we have to be very, very careful. They talk about bifurcation now of rules, but I think there needs to be bifurcation in coaching, because I think there's one for the, for the aspiring player or the player that's already at that level, and there's one for the masses. I mean, so if we get them all mixed up, and I mean, it can be very, very confusing. So, I sort of look at it as like, it's wonderful having all this knowledge and information, but has the standard of golf really improved despite all the technology that we have? Okay, I mean, maybe if we get artificial intelligence and somebody just stands on the tee there and they plug in a couple of electrodes and they get to swing the club in perfect form and what have you. But I mean, until that happens, I mean, golf is still going to be a game where it's probably still more art than science. And so, utilizing what attributes you have, physical attributes, mental attributes. And so, it's an interesting thing, and we can get swept up in all this technology, which I think, is wonderful. We use it all the time, but it's a tool. It's still a tool that somebody like myself and Dave and other coaches use in order to sort of quantify and to be able to get the message across in such a way, and to show, biggest thing, it shows improvement. I mean, so, a lot of people get wrapped up in how their swing looks. So if you look on video, well, it doesn't look a lot better, even though they've now got a draw instead of this ghastly fade, say. And we can say, well, look at the numbers here. Okay, yes, obviously some parts of your swing are still going to look the same, but the fact of the matter is that, hey, things have changed and you can see it. So, I sort of tread softly in a lot of areas here, and I advise players and advise coaches for the most part. Say, listen, you need to learn your trade. You need to get things simply across, because I don't think there's any better quote than if you're playing and somebody says, good swing, okay, when you put a good swing on it. And I don't think there's any better quote from a teaching standpoint if somebody says, he's really simple, I got the message. and we vary it, depending. I mean, look, if somebody's more analytical, we change hats a little bit there. They might want to know a little bit more about it. If somebody's very simple and feel-oriented, we go in that direction. I think that's what takes the time, in my opinion, to really become a really great coach.
Dave, have you found that the access you now have to such precise TrackMan data, for example, when you're teaching somebody to hit 40-yard pitch shots and 35-yard pitch shots and things like that, does it make it easier for you to prove your case with an elite player that what's happening is working?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I first started, I had to, the way the 60-degree wedge was invented was that I was working with Tom Kite and Andy North and Jimmy Simons and some really good players. And I said, if you try to, and the highest lofted wedge on the PGA Tour was 55 degrees, 55 degrees loft. And so I said, look, you're weak in this area. And Kite said, I'm not weak in wedges. I'm one of the better wedge players out here. And I said, yeah, but look at how you perform with your wedge compared to your full swing. It's way less accurate. In a percentage basis, that's what I found out from my initial data, is that these guys were all weak in their short games. And Andy North believed it, and he's bright, and Kite believed it, he was bright, but they didn't buy it until they saw the numbers. I built a 60-degree wedge, cut the hosel off, welded it to the face, got myself a 60-degree wedge, and then I got these guys to come in, and one at a time, I competed with them and beat them. Now, that was an eye-opener. That's like seeing a video of your swing if you've never seen your swing before.
Right.
When I could beat them, they knew I had better equipment because they knew I wasn't as good a player, I wasn't as good a swinger, and I could not repeat my motions, except if I had a higher lofted wedge and I was trying to stop it close to the edge of the green on a tight pin, I could do it and they couldn't. So they all started seeing what the 60-degree wedge could do, and then the 64 came. But all of these things, if you can prove it to the people, it's much easier for them to see it. The thing I love about what David just said, I think the coach should know everything. I mean, the coach doesn't have to play. And I don't have paralysis by analysis when I play. I've thought enough about simplicity because that's the key. Golfers can't learn 3 things at once. I don't know any golfers that have learned 2 things at once. Mainly, it's one thing at a time. And if you're a good teacher, you see the big picture, and then you say, that guy needs this part of that picture. And if you can get his attention and his or her attention and keep them long enough and improve that part of it, then you can forget that part. It's committed to remote memory. It's practice. It's a habit. Then you go to the next thing. And the great teachers go boom, 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 one at a time, and gradually improve their instructors. I mean, I was a witness to Nick Faldo's work with David Ledbetter. I saw Nick come in. He was a pretty good player, but he was not a real winner. He was not a world beater. And about 2 or 3 months after he and Led started working, he was shooting about 79 or 80 because he was learning things. But Nick is smart, and he said, I'll stay with it. He committed. He stayed with it. He committed it to memory, and then he went to the next thing and the next thing. And he built his whole swing over, and he became the best player in the world for years. I was incredibly impressed with that. I mean, I didn't know anybody that could do that at the time he did it. And I think Nick has benefited greatly from it. I don't think Nick would be competitive on the tour today because he doesn't hit it far enough. But boy, I loved his swing at the time. I don't know if you remember, did you ever work with Bruce Crampton, Led?
No, he was a little bit before my time. I'll tell you a little Bruce Crampton story, okay? When I was, I think, 17, a mate of mine, we went to watch the Open. I think it was at Lidlam, I think it was, yeah. Anyway, it was way back. But I remember Bruce Crampton, we'd heard about, this Australian playing America who was a bit of a firecracker. But, I mean, you watch him hit balls. I mean, that was back in the day where the caddies had the baseball mitt and they boot to catch. And there he's hitting all these shots there, and all he's doing is waving his caddy back, and he's catching him, clean him, put him in the bag, catch him, clean him in the bag, walk back another 10 yards. And there next to him was Gary Player. Now Gary, he's like hitting it all over the shop. I mean, blocks and hooks, and then when he got the driver in the hand, he's low hooks. And I said to my mate, this was the first time that gambling was allowed on the golf courses. I think Ladbrokes, had a tent there, if I remember correctly. So I said, oh, this is a no-brainer, because Gary was like about, I don't know, 10-1 or something. I can't remember the exact odds. But, and, Bruce Crampton was like 50 or 60-1. I said, oh, we're going to put money on this. Well, I remember after the first day, it blew a little bit there. And Gary shot, I think, 68 or 69, and Crampton shot 80. So there you go. So that was my story with Bruce Crampton.
Well, Bruce Crampton had the most beautiful swing that I had ever seen at the time. I said, how can anybody beat this guy? And my story was Gene Littler and Arnold Palmer. I walked around with them. They had a bet. And, of course, I put all my money on Gene Littler. I thought it was the most beautiful swing. He never hit a bad shot. He looked great. And Palmer was all over the place. And Palmer beat him in every tournament they played. I mean, he had a terrible-looking swing, but he could golf his ball. And he got it into the hole, and Gene Littler was just so nice, but very short, and he was like David Marr, hit it beautifully, but not far enough to be competitive.
Gene the Machine, as they called him.
Gene the Machine. He was that.
Is that part of the challenge for both of you now? And when you using the Faldo example, David, I mean, what would it have been like to go through that construction process with Nick now, with the attention that those kind of changes get, like what Jordan Spieth's going through right now with working on his game? I mean, just the way golf is covered on social media and the way the commentary goes. I mean, you've taken some pokes on that score. I mean, that interaction that you have with players now has to be so different than it was 25 years ago, just because of the arena, the atmosphere.
Oh, no question. That's absolutely right. I mean, it's Matt. I had Nick Faldo, or Sir Nick, as I've got to call him now. But I'm actually one up on him because he used to call me Lord Led. So I think a Lord outranks a Sir. But anyhow, anyway, we had him on a couple of days ago, and that's the first time we've really reminisced for 20 odd years. It was really interesting, and we spoke about this, because if we attempted to do back then, today, I mean, with the social media, I mean, look, he got crucified as it was, and everything was sort of they heard little blips and what have you from over the other side of the pond, and back in CFAX days, which are sort of like a thing they had on the TV over there, and you got little blurbs. Oh, Nick Faldo misses yet another cut, or whatever the case was, and so it was. I mean, it was really. I mean, he went through a hard time, and I did too, actually. I mean, it was like my name was mud for a while, and I don't think you wouldn't have even contemplated on doing such a major overhaul, because it boiled down to the fact. Look, he'd won this was '85 when we started. '84, he actually won Hilton Head. And he'd won the Order of Merit in Europe a couple of times, and look, he was no mug, let's face it. And so when he said to me in '85, we were at Muirfield Village, he said, you know what, I'm just so sick of playing the way I'm playing. I just don't feel I'm fulfilling my potential. And we'd already chatted like at Sun City the year before. He said, listen, I want you to throw the book at me. I don't care how long this takes. I'm going to change things up. I want to win the Open. I want to learn to flight the ball correctly, because he was always a bit of a spinner. So obviously, if you had TrackMan back then, you could actually see and actually that was taking place. But with the old McGregor drivers and so on. But so you couldn't do it because there's so much riding today. I mean, you think about it. Top 50, you slip out of the top 50, it's a problem. You've got all these world events. You've got top 50 qualifying for the majors and the money involved, etc. Things have changed a lot over the years, for sure. So what we did then, and it was interesting because I thought at the time, and I thought I might have mentioned it to him, but he said I didn't. He didn't think he would have gone through it. But I thought, this is going to take a couple of years to change this, because he was at that stage. He was sort of late 20s at that point. It's difficult to change things up at that point in time. Sure. The DNA is already ingrained, right? I mean, you can change an 18-year-old, but you get in 28, 29, it's like, ooh, it's dicey area. But I mean, all power to him. Boy, he put the work, the effort, and the dedication. He said, I'm going to do this. And it was a slow process, as Dave was alluding to a little earlier. And it was it was a project that we both really geared ourselves up for. We both believed, and there was no, hey, are we doing the right thing ever? It was amazing. He trusted me explicitly, and we went on. And I had a student who really you look at and say, this is the ideal student. Somebody who just wants it so badly, who has a lot of talent. And I had a lot of people ask me how I teach, and not so much methodology wise, but I actually, the way I go about doing it, I actually have a picture in my mind what I think this person should swing like, and then I actually work towards that picture. That's how, when I actually sat down and thought about it at some stage, and that's actually how instinctively how I teach. And so I had this vision of exactly how Nick should swing the club, which was more rounded rather than the old sort of high hands and drive the legs, sort of the swing of the 70s, the Jack Nicklaus, Johnny Miller, Tom Weiskopf sort of look, where a little more rotary action there, get the arm playing, shallower. So he could actually, get his body moving in more of a rotary fashion than a big lateral slide. So I had these images. I mean, we just worked towards them slowly but surely. And it's funny enough, I mean, it was almost 2 years and a month when he actually won the Open. He actually won the Spanish Open a couple of months prior to that, but it was about 2 years. So interesting, but say, no way could you do that today. I mean, I wouldn't even attempt to do it. And I think the thing is, look, I've learned a tremendous amount through the students that I've worked with and the feedback, and your intuition is such, it's almost like, look, it's a case of working while on the job or changing things while on the job. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to take 2 years off now and go ahead, because I mean, you never know, you might never come back. And so it's always that's why players and flip from coach to coach. And I mean, I have to admire Jordan Spieth, because he stuck with his coach. Said, hey, no, we're going to get this right. And I think, I think it's going to come right. I mean, because he's such a talented player, and obviously there's a confidence issue there now. But I mean, what's he going to do? Give up everything that he's worked on in order to change completely, which is what a lot of the time that happens. I think back, quick story, then I'll be quiet. But the quick story, back in 1982. Okay, this was at Troon. Okay, and that was really when I started working with Nick Price for a few months prior to that. Nick should have actually won that. Tom Watson won it. Nick was leading by 3 shots with 5 holes to play. But do you know who was leading after 36 holes there? Okay, Bobby Clampett. Okay, Bobby Clampett had a 7-shot lead. Okay,
I do remember. I remember.
Okay,
yeah.
And then, the wind came up and he got blown out to in the Irish Sea somewhere. And he decided there and then, okay, I'm going to change everything. So here's a guy who was touted to be the next Jack Nicklaus, who had an unbelievable amateur record, hit the ball great. I mean, he worked with Ben Doyle, he was a golf machine guy. He knew that from the age of about 5 or 6. So now all of a sudden he's going to change everything after about 18 years. And no, I need to do something different. I've never seen such a change in a golf swing, in my opinion. I won't say who he worked with, but I mean, he changed it to a point where I didn't recognize his swing. It was so different. And to me, at that point, I thought, you know what, you're never going to see the Bobby Clampett that was touted to be. And so it's as coaches, we really are, we have to be very, very cautious, because we're dealing with people's livelihoods. I mean, more than anything else. So it's, we have to sort of treat them with kid gloves. We cannot just go in there and say, hey, you know what, I like this look, or let's copy Adam Scott's swing or whatever. I mean, that's why people have never really been successful trying to copy another swing. It just doesn't work.
Dave, how long did that process take for you and Phil?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's been a great ride, as David just said. Working with great players is really a treat, because you can learn so much from them, and it helps you understand the game itself, which you can then, if you're careful, you can give it to other people, but in pieces. But I am the proudest of not having worked with Phil Mickelson and helped him a little bit. But it's been a long time. This is my 16th year with Phil. I don't win all the arguments. I never have. From the first day we met, he wants to know what, why, when, where, and back of whose barn and stepped in what about everything that we work on. But my proudest point is I haven't screwed anybody up. Of all the players that you touch over the years, and I probably have not worked with as many as Led. I maybe do 4 or 5 or 6 really involved work with 5 or 6 players in any one year. Sometimes only 3 in a whole year that I really spend a lot of time with. But you can screw them up so easily. Oh, it is so scary to me. Okay, Phil, you want to improve? You know what he said to me when we got together? Called me out of the blue. Called me on the phone and said, "Can you help me?" I said, well, "What are you talking about? You're one of the best players. I don't know you personally, but your reputation is great." He said, I have never won a major. I've played in 43 majors. I'm 0-43, and I'm the best player that everybody says that has never won a major. And but I've tied. I mean, I've missed a playoff in 6 majors out of 43 by 1 shot. So what I need you to give me is a quarter of a shot around in a major. I don't care about the other ones, just the major. A quarter of a shot around, so that at the end of the major, I'll be in a tie. If I'd been in 6 ties and playoffs, I'd have won a few. He was confident of that. But he wanted a quarter of a shot around. Now, you don't go back on the shelf and say, oh, here's the bottle for a quarter of a shot around. I'll give that pill to Mickelson. That's not what happens. And we started, first, I didn't say a word to him for 2 months. I just watched him, measured what he did, measured how he played. And I measured what I thought his game was and where I thought he needed help. And of course, he didn't believe that at all. So he's been interested in distance since the day I met him. I've been losing that battle the last 5 years because he's now found a way to hit it further. And he really believes, I mean, I gave him the data that showed if he improved his driving 10% at Augusta, that's rather than improve any other part of his game, any other club, any other shot, if he improved his driving 10%, it would lower his scores more. Now, every other golf course I've ever measured, and I have a little computer program that does this, driving is not the leading participant to improve. It's usually the short game. Sometimes it's putting, but it's never driving. Of course, my data does not include Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, Phil's improved his driving distance 30 yards. He really has gained 30 yards, and he's longer. And it's killing him because he's hitting it everywhere. Once he gets that under control, that 30 yards will be a great advantage if he manages to do that. But it's killing him right now. Bryson's gained 100 yards. Now, I've never heard of that before. I didn't know, you know Frank Thomas led
yeah, very well. Yeah.
He once told me that his calculations, he's a physics guy and he knows what he's talking about. But he said no one could ever fly it over 300 yards. No matter what ball it did, no matter what club, just the physics of the situation. Well, I don't think he's watching Bryson these days, because Bryson, I just heard, I've been on a 3,000-mile trip. Love to tell you about it. It was a kick. But Bryson, while I was on the trip, I'm not up on what's happened on tour the last couple of weeks, but I heard Bryson hit one 401 and one 403 in the air, 403 yards off the tee. Now, that blows my mind. I don't know
what's as a little sidebar to that, let me just interject one second. A little sidebar. Apparently, it was up at Augusta, and rumor has it, I won't tell who told me that, but rumor has it, he hit it 65 yards from the first green. They're contemplating to see if they can this week actually move the green back onto the par 3 course, tee or back onto the par 3 course. That's where you're going to have to go.
If any place can do it, they can do it.
Yeah, right.
But you got to be careful. I've thought for a long time that Nicklaus had the right idea about cutting back the ball. But if you don't do it in the right way, making a course longer or cutting back the ball kills the shorter players. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know how. See, Bryson hasn't broken any rules. I take my hat off to him that said, I thought Phil was really pushing the limits and taking a big gamble, but he wants to do it because he loves to hit it by going after these 30 yards. I never thought he could get 100. I mean, I just hitting it 65 yards from the first green. I mean, I don't think Bryson's a very good wedge player. If he ever becomes a good wedge player, I don't know who can even play in the same group with him, because he's a pretty good putter and he drives it very straight for how far he's hitting it. I was impressed you know, I've got a lot of data on Wingfoot, and the fact that he drove it in the fairway half the time and close to the fairway most of the time at Wingfoot was incredibly impressive.
But David, do you think, on that score, do you think what Bryson is doing is kind of breaking the game, or is it just the next evolution? And, you know, Jack Nicklaus showed up and he did things that other people couldn't do, and Tiger Woods showed up and he did things that other people couldn't do. Is it just like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile? All of a sudden now people are going to realize that that's possible, so there'll be lots of players trying to do it?
I think that's part of it, and I also think that, look, it's like if you take the 100-meter world record, right? Whatever it is, I mean, who knows? You know, with all these players are getting, all these athletes are getting banned left, right, and center. So I'm not sure what the record is right now. But say it's 9.79. Okay, you can see, okay, 9.78 or something of that nature. But you can't go from 9.79 to 9.59. You know, I mean, it's just too big a jump. So I think that's probably what shocked the powers that be more than anything else. The fact that, wow, he's all of a sudden taking a golf course like Wingfoot, which is one of the hardest open venues, and he really, I won't say destroyed it, but he got to a point where it's like, look, he's hitting wedges everywhere. I mean, it's like, it's just, you know, obviously research says, look, the further down you are, the closer you are to the green, especially at places like US Open. Hey, even if you're in the rough, it's a hell of a lot easier than being back yonder. So it's, I mean, look, it's, he's an interesting, a really interesting guy. We know that. I mean, from the fact that he has same length irons and all that sort of thing, and he's willing to experiment. Look, the verdict is still out. Okay, the fact of the matter is, hopefully, I mean, whether his body can stand. I mean, he's 25, 26, whatever he is right now. I mean, we'll probably know more. I mean, even Justin Rose said this. We'll probably know more in 3 or 4 years how this experiment is working. I mean, is he gonna? I mean, look, the amount of stress on his back. I mean, hopefully he's got really good people around him, you know, from physiologists, even to nutritionists. I mean, taking 9 protein shakes a day, how good that is for your kidneys and excessive protein. Who knows? I mean, you know, it's like, I say, but probably at that point he's broken all sorts of records, won, I don't know how many majors if he carries on, and he probably won't care. He'll probably retire at 30, you know. So it's like, but, you know, it's a very, very interesting thing, and I think it's obviously got the attention of a lot of people, even his peers. You know, people like Rory are talking about it. Sort of they said, well, I don't think it's good for the game, but I'm actually trying to up my speed as well. You know, and it's always been, that's the holy grail, isn't it? Distance. I mean, from back in the day, I mean, you just had a few players back in the day, and in Jack's day, maybe before that, like George Baer and those sort of people, if I can recall. But now, I mean, it's like, look, it's commonplace. I mean, if you can't hit it, you know, carry it 300 yards, you're probably not going to be successful in this game, because they're going to be designing courses in such a way that, I mean, or setting up courses, maybe not designing, but setting up courses in such a way that it's going to make it more difficult to, you know, for the shorter hitters. I mean, I don't think you're going to see many Corey Pavins around in the future playing, to be quite honest. I mean, even in the girls' game, you know, if you look at the women's game now, the top 20 players are all averaging, top 20 are all averaging 270 and better. You know, I work with one of the long knockers, the Maria Fassi. I mean, you know, she's got, you know, she gets it up to 111 miles an hour driver head speed, which was unheard of. I mean, it's you know, a few years ago. So in actual fact, in 1980, when Dan Pohl won the driving, who's the longest driver, he averaged 280. I mean, you've got 3 girls that are longer than that now. You know, so so evolution happens. I mean, people run faster, jump higher, serve quicker, etc., etc. And so, I mean, there's still other parts of the game. I was speaking to Patrick Reed, and he said, man, he said, look, this is tough, you know, trying to compete against the Bryce. I said, yeah, but, you know, look, there's more facets of the game that it's not just long knockers, okay? It's like, especially Augusta, you got to think your way around there, okay? You got to hit to the right part. You got to hold putts. Your short game has got to help you out there if you miss a green. So, you know, it's obviously it's a huge advantage, and right now he's on the crest of a wave, and I mean, it's going to be, I think the viewership's going to be unbelievable, more than anything, just to see what he's going to do to the golf course. I mean, I don't even know if he was using his 48-inch driver when he was up there practicing. So, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, I want to give you something for Augusta next week, because I've really studied Augusta, and that's the I think 2010. It was either 6 or 10 when Phil won at Augusta. He had 2 drivers. And the reason was the data said, look, you got to get it further down the fairway. If you can hit a shorter iron in Augusta, because they have so many plateaus on these greens, if the pin is here, you've got to hit it on that level if you have a prayer of a birdie. Because if you miss that level with a 6 iron or a 5 iron, you're going to be trying to 2-putt, and you may 3-putt. I mean, greens are really tough at Augusta. And that's why it is so important. If Bryson can gain 30, 40, 50 yards, and that's 3, 4, 5 irons less that he can use than going into those greens that can give him better, shorter birdie putts, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see the Masters next week, because I think that's where it's going to be more important than any other course I know.
That was my next question for you, Dave, which is this: the Bryson stuff has kind of raised the specter that people are just bashing it, and there's no artistry in the game anymore. What do you see when it comes to short game? Do you see the level of artistry among good players going up since you started doing this? And is that a misconception? I mean,
No. If you look back and look at the wedges that Arnold Palmer and Sam Snead, I actually never saw Sam play, but I've seen a lot of film of him. But Hogan was a very poor short game player relative to his ball striking. Mo Norman was the legendary ball striker that was a terrible short game player. But most of them could putt okay, but the wedges were very, very different. I mean, Nicklaus's wedges weren't as bad as they saw. He was a pretty bad sand player. That's all my data showed on him. But his chipping and pitching were pretty good. But the players today, I'm telling you, Phil can hit it so many shots around the green. I mean, Phil plays a course that's 5 to 10 shots tougher than most people because of where he hits his tee-ball. And he still is competitive on his good weeks because he's so good around the greens. He can hit those shots that if everybody else short sides himself, they don't have a chance. And Phil loves to short side himself. He can hit high, soft shots that are only fly 10 feet or 15 or 20 yards. I mean, it's not a problem for him. So the short game today is way, way better. And I used to think, hey, it's everything. I mean, that's what my first data said. In 80 to 90, I was showing these players all of this data, and it said, man, it's your short game. The better your short game, the more money you're going to win, the more tournaments you're going to win. Because everybody was driving it. I mean, the leading money winner was 267. 267-yard drive average on the 4 holes they measured. And, you know, 267 today won't get it to the corner on the dog legs. So you've got to hit it farther today. And I now believe if you can get the kind of yardage Bryson can get, that it's better to hit it up there and hit a wedge. Look, even if you have to punch every 3rd hole, you have to punch out right in front of the green. Shoot, that's just a missed green. You chip it up in 1 putt and you go on. It doesn't, you've got an extra shot if you don't have to hit a 5 iron into these greens that have such tough pin positions. They're fast, they're sloping, and they're tough.
What are some of those skills that you're teaching elite players, whether it's a college player or it could be a mini tour player who's trying to play on the tour, it's a tour player who comes to you? What are some of the touch skills, the delicate skills that you're teaching these players to incorporate into their short game?
Is that for me?
For you.
I would say that it's first, what David said is knowing how you want to look when you swing, understanding the swing you're going to make. Because I'm not a guy who wants to hit down and beat the wedge through the turf. I'm not, Sergio Garcia is a great iron player and he strikes down on it really hard. I like the way Phil kisses the grass and doesn't even take a divot around the greens. He's controlling the bottom of his arc. He's sliding the club under it, and he can swing hard, and the ball doesn't go very far, and that means he can put more spin on it and he can control it more. I want to get the guy that understands how he's going to swing, and then I want him to get the mechanics of it. That's the second step. Make sure the grip is reasonable for a short game grip. I mean, guys that have a lot of lag in their downswing and can hit the ball a long way, it's hard for them to not hit it too far on short shots. So I want to get the concept of the way they want to play the short game. The first thing I have to do is get them to understand that the short game is a separate game. That's the biggest problem that I have. Once they buy into that, then they say, okay, now this is how I'm going to do the short game. And then I get them on. You see my background right here behind me? That's, let me get out of the way there.
Yep.
That's the last 60 yards of the 12th hole at Augusta. 13th hole at Augusta. Par 5 on my left. That's the creek that goes down the side of it and then across in front of the green and around to the right side. That's my view of what Augusta 13 is. I get players where every time they're trying to do the grip they want and the mechanical swing they have that they've decided on, it's in the vision they have, and they have a nice pre-shot routine setup. They're going to do it the same every time, so it will become a habit, and they don't have to think about it when the pressure's on. Once I do that and they hit the shot, I want them to know exactly how far it flew. Every shot. I want them to know when they hit it perfect, when they nip it, when they hit it an eighth of an inch fat, when they hit it a quarter of an inch fat, which players do all the time and don't even know it. You've got to learn that. You've got to learn what a good strike is. And this screen behind me, if I could show you, if we have time at the end here, I'll just walk over to my other computer and hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and show you the different holes I have in my backyard. I've got a hole that's 30 yards. I've got one that's 40, one that's 50, one that's 60, one that's 70, one that's 10 to 20, depending on where the pins are. And when I practice here in my backyard with my pros, yeah, now that's a perfect example. Those little circles on the right, that's my wedge calibration range. And if you can imagine the tee is off to the right and there's a 10-yard target there that you can't really see. But those are greens that have little terraces in them. You see those terraces? That we know exactly how far every shot goes. And of course, when I'm indoors in bad weather, that's a picture of my outdoor backyard. The one behind me is my indoor screen, and it shows you 2.1 yard after every swing. And that's the way my players are getting better on their short games, is that they're learning this swing does that, this swing does that. And when you can control it within 1 yard, you get a lot of 3-foot putts, which you can put the heck out of.
And that's really what touch is, isn't it? I mean, touch is.
It is. It's learning touch. It's not. Listen. Touch is not a feeling in these hands. Touch is knowing what that swing felt like, and then what it did. And that you can learn touch. Touch is not a God-given gift. Phil Mickelson, if he doesn't work on his short game, he's not any better than the rest of us. But he works on it. He works hard. Everybody says Vijay Singh and Tom Kite, great grinders. You don't know how many wedge shots Phil Mickelson has hit in his backyard. I mean, he's got a million and a million and a million on top of that. And he knows how far every one of them goes. He knows how hard to swing. He's not afraid of any shot. He's hit them all. And I think that's why he's the greatest short game player ever. Let me tell you one story. I'm in the pro shop in the locker room at Medina, and Tiger is there, and he's at his peak, and I'm working with Phil there, and I had said something about Phil being the greatest short game player. And the press got all over me because Tiger's number 1 and Phil's number 2, and they say, "You mean other than number 1?" I said, "No, I'm telling you, if you gave me either Tigers or if they both played the first 2 shots, Phil will kill it because he's much better on the third shot around the up and downs when he misses greens, or the third shots on par 5s. Of course, those are all par 4s to these guys now. But back in that day, I was getting roasted in the news, in the media, because I said Mickelson's short game was better than Tiger's. And I'm in the locker room, and Tiger walks up, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "Pelzy, I'd trade in a heartbeat for his short game." He said, "Don't worry about the press. I get it every day. It doesn't matter how much they get on you. I'd trade for his short game in one heartbeat." So I really think he's the best there's ever been around the greens.
David, who's the best you've ever seen around the greens?
that's a good question, but I would say, you know, I had the great good fortune back in the early 90s. I worked with him for a solid year. I worked with Seve. And so, I mean, I think this guy, remembering that 56ers, I always asked him, this was probably around the time that Dave brought out the 60 degree. I said, hey, you ever try a 60, Seve? He gets the face of a sandwich and does this. I don't need 60. And so, I mean, the way that guy, I mean, the imagination that he had, I mean, and technique, I mean, I don't think he even understood his technique. I mean, it was just a matter of, hey, he saw it, he felt it, he did it. And the creativity that he had, I would say, I mean, and he did it a little differently. You know, obviously Dave was the initial, I guess, instigator of the clock system for wedge play, you know, 7:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You know, Seve, he wasn't like that. He just saw it. I mean, he just said through practice, through the ability to sense it and touch, as we just spoke about. And, you know, when you get a guy, literally, I remember at the Players one year, I mean, literally, he had you know, he was hitting these bunker shots with a 2-iron. I mean, he had a crowd of tour players around him. I mean, he was hitting these 2-irons, and these things are coming out like literally like a 64. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You know, and so, yeah, so he was an outlier in many respects. I mean, but he had the gift, whatever that is. He had the gift, similar to Phil. I mean, and so, I mean, I would say those are the two top, and I would say probably through the years too, for a period of time, I would say that Luke Donald had one of the best short games out there, because it sort of made up for a lot of his shortcomings in his long game. So to get to number one in the world, you've got to have something going for you.
So it's crazy to go from hitting 2 irons out of a bunker to what the average guy is doing. But Dave, what are some of the ways that you're communicating with average players these days to try to transmit some of these skills to them?
Actually, I try to get them off of that. I mean, the first thing that happens when one of my school students hits a good bunker shot from a perfect lie, he says, well, now let's go get the tough lies. And his next 10 shots from good lies are horrible. You know, you don't hit one shot and own it. You've got to internalize it. And one of the things that I want to say is that I many times, because I have taken so much data, and I am a numbers guy, I get criticized because, oh, the great players are all field players. Well, of course they're all field. You play with your feel, and my numbers are just to get you grounded. I mean, I know when I take a 9 o'clock backswing with a 60-degree wedge, I know how far it goes with no wind and certain temperature and perfect lie and all of that. I know that in my head. But when I'm on a golf course and I'm 62 yards, I say, well, I know this is about right. And then I take a swing and I look at it and I feel it. And I completely forget all the numbers and I go into the feel mode. All these great players, the last thing you do before you hit a shot is see it and feel it. And you actually see the image, you imagine what's happening and you feel what's going to happen. And if you can't do that before you try to do it, you're never going to be a great player. So I love field players. I mean, I've worked with Steve Elkington and Phil is a field player, but he's grounded on numbers that he knows, and then he feels it for the situation from there. I mean, the lie means everything in every short game shot. I mean, imagine how easy it is to learn to hit drives, I think, off a tee, compared to hitting short game shots off of slope lies with crap all around them. And sometimes
different grass.
It's a totally different. There's so many shots in the short game, and if you don't have enough of a background to get into the field mode, you will never be a good player. And I teach field all the time, and it's super important.
Well, that's a good question. You've got the world's coolest house. I mean, we've got some slides here to show some of the setup you have there. But given the season, you know, we're going into cold weather here in the Northeast, and given what's happening with COVID and how that's keeping some people inside, is the short game a place where people can? Is this a skill that you can acquire, say, in the next 3 or 4 months if you're stuck inside? I mean, are there ways to pick that up?
Look at the background of the backyard indoors. The backyard. This is an indoor screenshot of my backyard. They did it all in photographs, so it's photographically realistic. But you see the in the far distance across the top of the screen, there's kind of a tree line back there. That's my property. My property is 420 yards deep and it's 390 yards wide. It's 24¼ acres. So I've only got golf up around the front. The rest is all driving range. But on these greens, they're off a deck. And I've hit a couple 100,000 shots off this deck. It's myself, and I'm not counting all the other players that have done it. But these shots, you know how far the target is every time before you don't have to think about it. In my backyard, there's no thinking. You know, this is on the left is the second hole at Augusta, my vision, and you're hitting from the right, and that's a little pond short of the green. Any ball that hits, there are no Freddie Couples shots that stop on the bank there. If you hit land short of that green, it goes in the water. If you land long of the green, it's in one of those bunkers or it's in the woods behind. There's no relief there. On the right is the second green, which is the Players Club at Ponte Vedra Beach. And you got another one here? Do some more. I see you've got all kinds of up and down hills, and I've got all kinds of lies around these. You can hit from anywhere, but of course, I hit most of my shots from the deck. And sometimes I'm in my skivvies. I don't have any neighbors close. I can go out there and just on the left now. Wait, go back to the one before that. On the left, there is a 90 to 60 yard shot into that green at the top left. And that's Ray's Creek that runs down the left and across in front of the green. That's the 13th green. On the right center top, that's the 17th at Pebble Beach. And I've got all these sand traps short of it so I can hit any length sand shot. And is there another one? Go to the next slide. Oh no, that's my wedge calibration range. Every time I swing a wedge shot, I want to know how far it goes. And that's 10, 20, 30, 40 yards on the outside. So this is easy access to short game practice. That's where I live. I love it. I don't live on golf courses. I've done that all my life. I live on golf. I can go out there in my skivvies with my shag bag from my living room, and in 40 seconds I can have a ball airborne and learn from it. So that's why it's so much fun for me.
What I want to know is how many bets have you won against tour players on that home course you have at your house?
No comment. I can tell you this. I have a little game that I play with Phil, and it's called 6 Up. And you take 3 balls. I take 3, he takes 3, and it's always my turn first. I start. I get to pick the shot, and we're going to hit 3 shots from here. And we either play lies as you drop them, or you can improve them. And the first shot, I hit one, he hits one. The closest is 1 up. I hit one, he hits one. The closest is where you were either even, or back to go 2 up. And we do this until somebody gets 6 ahead. And it's real easy to get 1, 2, or 3 up. Then it starts getting tougher because we both get more serious and get better as you hit 4, 5, and 6. But I would say this: played him for money, and I've played him for my fee. And I would have to say that of the 500 plus games we played, I've won 3. He's won the rest. So I wouldn't say it was very competitive. He is a far better short game player than I am, but I have beat him 3 times.
There you go. That's your own major championship.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun trying to beat him.
It's. I want to tell a quick story. I want to tell a quick story about Dave. Because obviously Dave was the. He experimented a lot of different things. He was the originator of the frequency shafts. And I remember the time where he brought out the Featherlight club. Right, this was an ultralight shaft. But yes. So this is quite a funny story in as much that it was like, wow, this is real. This is Bryson DeChambeau controversial stuff. Or these light clubs. Well, obviously the theory behind it was you'd be able to swing it faster, be able to have more control over it, and what have you. So I know it was one of those areas that Dave was working on, and obviously must have done a lot of research initially. But the funny thing was, one of his clients was D.A. Wybring, and when he went over to, I think he was playing the Open, and a lot of times the players would play the Scottish Open the week before the Open, and so D.A. went over there, and it, on his bag it said D.A. plays Featherlight. Now Featherlight in Britain is a condom So there were quite a few sarcastic, facetious comments about what DA was, who he was representing. You know, it was like.
Plus, he was.
Anyway.
Plus, did that make him a field player?
I suppose so. Well, that was funny.
Raymond Floyd and DA and Bernard Langer, they all played featherlights for a little while till the shafts started breaking and we couldn't get the more flexible shafts in them. That gave them 2 to 12% more distance off the tee. And that's what they were willing to do, change their whole feel and change the game. They hit every club further, and they were going for it at the time, but it didn't last. And we couldn't get the shafts, so we stopped making them. Although, David, did you know right now today that Callaway, who you represent and I've represented in the past, their headweights are featherlight.
Yeah, I heard that, exactly.
They are featherlight, but they've got much better shafts than I had back then.
Right,
you know, my shafts on the really good driver, the best drivers I made, and Raymond Floyd hit it and loved it. He was really good with it. But he kept breaking. His favorite driver would break, and then right in the middle of a tournament. But Callaway has done a great job with all the heads of the major manufacturers now are that weight, because you can hit them, swing them faster and hit them farther.
Wait, how does that affect short game? Are you in favor of lighter swing weight, lighter shafts for wedges, or is it heavier?
I'm not in favor of, I think you can get used to pretty much anything, but I do like when you don't have, there's a big difference between the full swing, the power swing, and the short game. Because the power swing, you've got this, can you see this? You've got the shaft, as you come into impact, the shaft, which you've loaded on the downswing, is going to, what you want is for it to rebound and give the energy to the ball right at impact. Now, in my particular golf swing, I'm 6'5", and I don't hit it as far as I should for 6'5", because my shaft has already passed and is slowing down. My shaft is slowing the club head down when it hits the ball. What you want is for it to kick right into the. So now for drivers, I want the shaft flexing and kicking and giving that energy to the ball. In the short game, I don't want it. I teach that you don't turn your shoulders against your hips. I don't want any coil in the short game. I want to take the club back to say 9 o'clock, say, you can't see very well here. If it was right out when 9 o'clock, if my left arm was straight out to the left, that would be where the hour hand is on 9 o'clock. If I do that, I want my hips pointed right over there where the club is. I want to rotate without coil. I don't coil my upper body against my lower body in the short game. Chip shots, if I turn my shoulders a little bit, I turn my hips a little bit. Everything is together on the classical short game maximum touch swing. No kick in the shaft. So it really doesn't matter what the head weight is, because I'm not flexing the shaft, and the shaft doesn't have to kick it back into impact. So that's kind of a complicated answer, but.
And that's actually why, Matt, that with a decent dose of technique, amateur golfers can really improve their short game, because a lot of these guys, they don't build up the dynamics in the swing. It's impossible. They're not physically capable of doing that. So the fact is, I always look at it as, okay, the full swing is dynamic, the short shots are non-dynamic. So the fact is that when you look at players, sort of look at the players who sort of look like they swing it really softly. You know, you look at a Langer, for instance. You know, you look at a Kite. I mean, back in the day. I mean, there's no real forward lean on the shaft. There's no explosion, because, you know, controlling the speed of the club head is vital. So, I mean, ultimately, you want the club, if you start off with the shaft, say here, at impact, that's where you want the shaft. You don't want it leaning forward, because now you totally change the loft. You're now using the leading edge more, and this is why a lot of players have problems, you know, from grainy lies. And so, you know, what Dave is saying is 100% right. I mean, you know, it's more of a hand and arm motion relative to a body motion, which is the full swing.
Matt, would you show Mickelson's the last couple of slides I sent you? There's one of them hitting a ball over my head. And then there's one, yeah, here's hitting a ball over my head from a full backswing. Now, there were two more frames out to the right of this photograph where he got it. I'm standing right in front of him with my hands up like this. And he said, now don't move. And I said, move? I was expecting him to hit a little flip over my head. And he took it back full, John Daly backswing. And I just thought, oh my God, I just closed my eyes. And whap, I heard that ball. And that ball was 16 inches from my nose. He didn't even come close to hitting me with that. Now go to the next slide. When he comes through, look at that, look at the angle of that ball off the ball was where that little thing of dust was. He didn't even take a divot. He just kissed the grass and had that ball up that high. And there's one more to show you just where he started. That's how open he has the face. Most people would be afraid they'd slide the club under the ball and fluff it from there. But he knows he can go ahead and swing hard, and it won't go very far, but it'll go really high.
Well,
but this shaft does not load. Anyway, go ahead.
We could talk short game all day, but we're past our allotted time. Dave, you want to wrap it up by just telling people how they can find you and what you're doing, and get some of your information here through the winter months?
That was to me?
Yeah.
You go to the first slide.
There we go.
All right. PelzGolf.com. I have to tell you, I'm really excited. We've been working during COVID on our website. We had an old-fashioned one. We've got a modern now. You can find us. We are transferring all the old content we had from the old one over to the new, and we don't have very much on it yet. We have schools and clinics. We've been shut down all summer, but we started up again because there's a really nice demand for schools now. I'm very surprised that golf is doing so well, but it's really doing well. We don't even have our newsletters on this site yet, but we will shortly. And we have an occasional tip, and some of our products are already there. Go to the next one. David, I wanted to talk to you about this, but I got to talk to you in private. We're talking about doing Pelz time. That's like you and I right now are doing. Well, this is really Ledbetter time because it's on your website. But if you were on our website, we'd be having a little Pelz time talk. And we were just going to put some videos up every Monday and just see how a conversation would go with golfers if we could improve them just a little bit 52 times a year, just a little spiff. We haven't done that yet. That's not up. And the next one, we have, this is Improve Your Game. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to survey all of my past students and anybody that wants to write in and fill out one of our questionnaires. We're going to say, if you know your weakness, we will give you a 20-minute session on how to improve it. I just want to attack their weaknesses. One of the great things about Led is that he teaches people what he sees that they need. Now, a lot of pros, God bless them, I love golf pros, but a lot of them teach what they're working on for their own game. And that's not what golfers need. Golfers need whatever they're weak in. And that's why I'm going to try to, in the future, we've got a couple of things up on how to play from sand and a process for practice. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know if we're going to help anybody or not, but that's our new website. That's what we've been working on, and it's pelzgolf.com, and come and talk to us. Tell us what you want to see.
Fantastic. I think as golf pros, we all used to do that, and it sort of hit home when, I did a bit of golf machine work, and I told this lady, well-endowed lady, I'm not sure if it's probably politically correct, but I said we were really into the technique. I said, listen, we got to snap load those power accumulators, and she looked at me with sort of a quizzical look. And so I said, wasn't quite sure what I meant, and I sort of, whoops, okay, well, put it in layman's terms.
Gentlemen, I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Dave.
Get together again.
Enjoyed it. Love talking to you. Look forward to seeing you down the road. It's been a great 40 years or whatever we've known each other, and maybe we can have 40 more.
There you go. All right.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for
Matt,
watching. And be safe.